The fire marshal placed my own signature in front of me and asked why I had disabled the alarm that should have warned Luis Ortega before the press overheated. The signature was real. The date was not. Across the metal conference table, my plant manager, Peter Vaughn, folded his hands and said, "Nathan has always believed keeping the line running matters more than paperwork." For 17 years, that sentence had sounded like praise. That morning, it became the reason everyone believed I had caused the fire. My name is Nathan Cole. I was 44 years old, divorced, and the maintenance manager at Crawford Industrial Laundry outside Dayton, Ohio. We did not wash shirts and bed sheets for private customers. We processed linens for hospitals, nursing homes, hotels, and 2 county detention centers. On a normal weekday, nearly 90,000 pounds of fabric moved through our building. The plant was loud enough that you learned to read faces before you heard words. There were steam tunnels, dryers big enough to stand inside hydraulic presses, conveyors, chemical pumps, and heat exchangers held together by equal parts engineering and stubbornness. I started there when I was 27. Back then, I had a toolbox, 2 pairs of work pants, and a 5-year-old daughter who thought every machine I fixed belonged to me. I had not planned to stay 17 years. Nobody plans to stay 17 years at an industrial laundry. You stay through 1 promotion, then through a recession, then because the health insurance covers your daughter's braces, then because the new job across town starts at less money, then because half the night shift calls you before they call their own supervisor. Eventually, the plant knows your habits better than your family does. My daughter Maya was 16 when the fire happened. Her mother Allison and I had been divorced for 6 years. There was no affair, no dramatic betrayal. We had become 2 tired people who handled every problem like a scheduling conflict. Allison said I was physically present but mentally inside the plant. She was not wrong. I missed dinners because Boiler 2 lost pressure. I left school concerts early because a dryer bearing started screaming. I once took Maya to a birthday breakfast and spent 40 minutes on the phone walking a mechanic through a steam valve failure. After the divorce, I promised myself I would become more available. Instead, I became better at apologizing. The week before the fire, Maya asked whether I would attend her student council debate on Thursday. I checked my calendar. "I'll be there." "You said that last time." "I know." "You were not there last time." "I know." She watched me carefully. Maya had Allison's eyes and my habit of waiting through silence until the other person admitted the truth. I said, "I'll be there this time." The fire started at 12:47 Thursday morning. My phone rang at 1:03. The caller was Julio Reyes, our night shift mechanic. He did not say hello. "Press 4 is on fire." I was already getting out of bed. "Is everyone out?" "Luis's hurt. Fire department is here." "How bad?" "I don't know." I dressed in the dark and drove 12 miles in 11 minutes. The sky above the east side of the plant glowed orange. 3 fire engines blocked the loading lane. Workers stood in the employee parking lot wearing coats over uniforms, some without shoes because they had run out of the locker room. The smell hit me before I reached the door. Burned cotton, hydraulic fluid, hot rubber. A firefighter stopped me. "I'm maintenance manager." He pointed toward the ambulance. Luis sat on the back step with an oxygen mask against his face. His right forearm was wrapped in wet dressings. His wife was not there yet. He looked at me once and then away. That look stayed with me longer than the flames. Peter arrived 10 minutes later, wearing expensive loafers, dress pants, and a jacket over a t-shirt. He had never been inside the plant after midnight in the 8 years he had managed it. He walked directly to the fire marshal. "This is Nathan Cole," he said. "He controls all maintenance overrides." I looked at him. "What overrides?" Peter's eyes did not move. "The thermal alarm on press 4. I said, "That alarm was active." The fire marshal asked, "When did you last verify that?" "Monday morning, with a live test." "No, the panel showed normal." Peter exhaled through his nose, the kind of breath people use when they want to appear disappointed rather than afraid. The fire crew had contained the flames before they reached the chemical storage area. Press 4 was destroyed. The wall behind it was black. One conveyor had collapsed. Water covered the floor. The thermal alarm cabinet hung open. Inside, the sensor circuit had been bypassed. Not disabled in software, bypassed physically. A small jumper wire had been placed between two terminals. I stared at it. Julio stood behind me. "You do that?" I asked. "No." "Who was in this cabinet?" "Nobody from my shift." The fire marshal photographed everything. Peter said, "Nathan, we need to be honest." I turned. "With who?" "With everyone." He held a plastic evidence sleeve. Inside was a maintenance authorization form. My signature was at the bottom. The form approved a temporary bypass of thermal sensor TS4 for 72 hours pending replacement. The authorization date was 3 days before the fire. I took one step toward him. "Where did you get that?" "It was in the maintenance file." "That is not the form I signed." Peter looked at the fire marshal. "He has signed several." I said, 3 years ago, I approved a bypass on press 2. The sensor housing cracked and the replacement was in transit. It was 72 hours. That signature came from that form." Peter's voice stayed calm. "So the signature is yours?" "The signature is mine. The document is not." The fire marshal asked for my employee badge and phone number. I gave him both. At 4:15 in the morning, Peter told me I was suspended pending investigation. "Go home," he said. "I need to speak to Julio." "No contact with employees." "I need the maintenance server." "No access." "I need copies of work orders." "Our counsel will provide what is appropriate." I lowered my voice. "You know I did not write that authorization." Peter stepped closer. "I know you have made judgment calls for years. Some were never documented the way they should have been." "You knew about those calls." "I knew you were responsible for maintenance." That was when I understood. He was not confused. He was building the sentence he would repeat. At 6:40, I sat in my truck across from a 24-hour diner and called Allison. She answered on the 4th ring. "What happened?" "The plant had a fire." "I saw it online. Are you okay?" "Yes." "Was anyone hurt?" "Luis." "How bad?" "Burns. Smoke." There was a pause. Then she asked, "Why are you calling me?" "I may be under investigation." Another pause. "For what?" "They are saying I bypassed an alarm." "Did you?" "No." "But..." She knew me too well. "I signed a temporary bypass on another machine 3 years ago. Somebody used the signature." "Nathan, I did not do this." "I did not say you did. You said my name like you did." "I said your name because there is always a but with that plant." I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. "Maya has school." "I know." "Do not let her see the news before I talk to her." "That is not something either of us controls anymore." By 9, a local television station had posted a short report. "1 worker injured, 'cause under investigation. Maintenance procedures being reviewed." My name was not in it. By noon it was. A reporter had found an anonymous source inside the company. The article said the maintenance manager had been suspended after investigators discovered an alarm had been manually overridden. They did not say I caused the fire. They did not need to. At 2:18, Maya texted, "Are they talking about you?" I typed 3 answers and deleted them. Then I wrote, "I did not disable that alarm. I will explain in person." She responded, "Did you know the machine was dangerous?" I stared at the question. Press 4 was 22 years old. Its hydraulic lines leaked twice in the previous year. The thermal sensor had generated intermittent faults for 6 months. We had requested a replacement control board. Peter delayed the capital request. I had approved temporary resets to keep production moving. Did I know the machine was dangerous? Not in the way that caused the fire, but not in the clean, simple way my daughter needed me to say no. I wrote, "I knew it needed work." I did not know the alarm had been bypassed. She did not answer. At 5, a courier delivered a letter from Crawford's attorney. It instructed me not to enter company property, contact employees, access company systems, or discuss the investigation publicly. The last paragraph said the company had reason to believe maintenance policies may have been violated under my supervision. I read it 3 times. Then I opened the drawer where I kept old work notebooks. For years, I carried small black notebooks. Dates, part numbers. Fault codes, names. I had stopped using them as much after the company moved maintenance requests into a digital system. The older books smelled like machine oil. I found the one from 3 years earlier. On April 14th, I had written, P2T, S-housing cracked. Bypass 72 hours only. REPL ETA, April 16th. PV, approved run. PV, Peter Vaughn. I had written his initials because he had stood beside me when I signed the authorization. I remembered the conversation. I told him we should shut down Press 2 until the censor arrived. He said the hospital contract would penalize us if we missed volume. I wrote 72 hours in red ink. When the part arrived, Julio installed it. The work order was closed. The old authorization should have remained in the archive. My signature had remained there too. The next morning, Peter called. I want to handle this privately, he said. You sent me a legal letter. That is standard. You told the fire marshal I controlled every override. You do. I manage maintenance. I do not authorize production risk alone. Nathan, listen to me. This is serious. Luis is in surgery. My stomach tightened. For his hand. I do not have details. Why are you calling? The board wants options. What kind of options? A separation agreement? I laughed once. Not because it was funny. You want me to resign before the investigation starts. I want to protect you from a worse outcome. What would the agreement say? That you accept responsibility for maintenance procedures under your department. That sounds like admitting I bypassed the alarm. It does not use those words. What does it give me? 6 months' salary. Medical coverage through December, neutral reference. 6 months' salary was not insulting. It was carefully calculated, enough to make a frightened man imagine relief. I asked what happens to the fire investigation. The company cooperates. Your employment matter remains confidential. And Luis, that is between the company and its insurer. I said, send the agreement. Peter was quiet. You will consider it. I will read it. After we hung up, I hated myself for wanting the money. Not because taking it would prove guilt. Because part of me wanted to stop. To sign something. To let a lawyer shape the language. To tell Maya the situation was resolved. For 17 years, I had solved problems by keeping machines running. Peter was offering me the human version of a temporary bypass. And I was tired enough to consider it. The separation agreement arrived that afternoon. 23 pages. Most of it was standard language about benefits, equipment, confidentiality, and non-disparagement. Page 11 contained the sentence Peter had described. Employee acknowledges that temporary safety bypass procedures, including documentation and removal, fell within employee's sole operational authority as maintenance manager. Sole operational authority. That was the trap. If I signed, the company could say I had accepted responsibility for every bypass, whether I installed it or not. I called Rachel Moreno, an employment lawyer I had met during an earlier Crawford dispute. Her office was above a pharmacy with a coffee machine beside stacks of banker boxes. She read the agreement, the legal letter, and my notebook entry. Right now, she said, the company has the disputed document. You have a note showing Peter approved a different bypass 3 years ago. They locked me out of everything else. Then preserve your personal phone and messages. Do not contact employees, post online, or speak to Peter without me. She tapped the agreement. Do not sign this. They are turning your job description into an admission. When I asked about her fee, she offered to bill the case in stages. You look like a man who solves things alone until they become more expensive, she said. That was fair. She sent a preservation demand to Crawford Peter, the plant's insurer, and the fire investigation unit. It requested login records, work orders, camera footage, maintenance authorizations, email, access control logs, safety meeting minutes, capital requests, sensor fault histories, Rachel said the request would not guarantee preservation, but it would make destruction harder to explain. That afternoon, I went to see Luis. Not at the hospital. Rachel told me not to contact him directly while the company investigation was active. I drove to the hospital parking lot anyway. I sat there for 40 minutes. Then I left. The next day, Luis's wife Carmen posted a photograph of his bandaged arm. The caption said, "My husband warned them the machine was unsafe. Management kept it running. Now he may never use his hand the same way again." She did not name me. The comments did. A former employee wrote, "Ask Nathan Cole. He never shut anything down." Another wrote, "He used to say a sensor was just a switch with an attitude." I had said that too. It was a joke mechanics used when a sensor failed repeatedly. Online jokes become policy statements. Maya saw the post. She called instead of texting. "Did Luis warn you?" "I do not know." "How can you not know?" "People reported faults. We worked on them." "That is not what I asked. I do not remember Luis personally warning me that the alarm was bypassed. Did he warn somebody?" "I am trying to find out." Her voice changed. "You sound like the people on television." "What people?" "The ones who answer a different question." I closed my eyes. "Yes, Luis complained that Press 4 had recurring sensor faults. I knew that." "Then why was it running?" "Because recurring faults do not always mean a machine is unsafe. Sometimes they mean the sensor is failing." "Isn't the sensor the thing that tells you it is unsafe?" "It is more complicated." "Is it?" I heard Allison in the background tell her to lower her voice. Maya said, "You promised you would come to my debate." The debate had been the evening after the fire. I had forgotten it completely. "I'm sorry." "You always are." She hung up. There are moments when a person can be innocent of the worst accusation and still guilty in every smaller way that matters. That was one of them. On Monday, Rachel received the company's initial response. They denied that Peter had altered documents. They said my department had exclusive control of maintenance credentials. They attached 3 pages: the bypass authorization, a screenshot of a login event, a policy bearing my initials. The login event showed my account accessing the maintenance terminal at 11:38 p.m., a little more than an hour before the fire. I was home at 11:38. I had ordered Chinese food at 8:12 and watched half a documentary before falling asleep on the couch. My home camera showed me bringing in the delivery. My phone's location history showed me at home. That helped prove I was not physically at the plant. It did not prove nobody had used my account. The maintenance terminal was an old desktop in the shop office. For years, mechanics used generic logins. The company changed policy after a cybersecurity review and required individual accounts. The terminal still offered to save passwords. Mine had been saved once. I discovered it by accident 6 months earlier when Julio logged into my account without realizing it. I changed the password and told everyone not to save credentials. Had it been saved again? I could not know. Rachel asked whether Peter had access to the shop. "Everyone with a management badge does." "Does he know your password?" "Not that I know." "Could he reset it?" "IT could." "Who approves IT resets?" "Plant manager." She wrote that down. The policy with my initials was real. It said the maintenance manager was responsible for documenting all temporary safety overrides and verifying removal. I had signed it 4 years earlier. Rachel said, "This is not good." "I know." "Did you follow it?" "Usually." "Usually" is not an answer that survives a deposition. There were emergency situations. A mechanic might bypass a failed switch to move a jammed load. Then he would report it. Always, I thought of late shifts, rushed calls, verbal instructions. "No." "Did Peter know?" "Yes." "Can you prove it?" "I do not know." She looked at the documents again. "They do not need to prove you physically installed the jumper. They may only need to show your controls were so weak that the bypass happened under your authority." "Criminally?" "Probably not from what I see. Civilly and professionally, that is different." I said, "I want the truth." Rachel nodded. Then prepare for the truth to include things you wish you had done better. The Union Hall sat behind a tire shop. Ray Hollis met me near the vending machines. We had once worked the same line, but after I became management, I signed his warning for refusing mandatory overtime. He had never forgotten. "What do you want?" he asked. "Information. From the union you left." I showed him my notebook entry, proving Peter had approved the old bypass. Ray barely glanced at it. "You wrote his initials yourself. That is not proof." "Were there complaints about Press 4? "There were complaints about every machine. I fought for repairs." "Quietly," he said. "Then Peter said no money, and you came back with another temporary fix. You taught people the plant would only stop after somebody bled." I said I did not bypass that alarm. Ray studied me. "I believe you did not do it that night. You are careless about consequences, Nathan, not paperwork." It was not support, but it was the closest thing I had. "Will you ask people what they saw?" "No, Ray. The company already sent a notice telling employees not to discuss the investigation. Half our members think they will lose their jobs if the sale falls apart. The other half think getting you fired might force the company to repair something." "The sale?" He watched my face. "You do not know." "Know what?" "Crawford is being sold." "To who?" "Midwest Textile Services. Supposed to close next month." I sat back. Peter had not told department managers. "Where did you hear that people see men in clean shoes walking around a dirty plant?" "Why would the fire affect the sale?" "You are the numbers guy." "I am not the numbers guy." "You are more numbers than me." I asked whether there had been layoffs discussed. Ray's jaw tightened. "Night shift may be consolidated." "How many jobs?" 30, maybe 40. "Does Marisol know?" He looked up. "Why her?" "Because she cleans the maintenance office at night." Ray said nothing. I remembered Marisol Vega, 54. Worked for an outside cleaning contractor. Always carried a spiral notebook. I had assumed it held supply counts. "Does she write down who is in the shop?" I asked. Ray's expression changed just enough. "You should leave her alone." "Does she?" "She has a son on probationary hire." "I am not trying to hurt her." That is what people with more protection always say to people with less. "I have no protection." "You still have a house, a lawyer, a name that appears in articles because you were management. Marisol has a time card somebody can erase." He stood. "I will tell workers they can speak to investigators if subpoenaed. That is all." As he walked away, I said, "Did Luis warn you about Press 4? Ray stopped. "He sent complaints to his shift lead." "Written." "Voice messages sometimes." "Do they still exist?" "You need to ask Luis." "I am not allowed to contact him." Ray looked back at me. "Then maybe for once you have to wait for somebody else to decide whether you are worth the risk." Waiting was harder than fixing. At home, I searched years of personal work messages, broken valves, serial numbers, fault codes, and late-night questions. At 1:18 in the morning, I found a text from Peter dated 7 months earlier. "Peter, can we keep 4 running until Q3 CAPEX? Me not if thermal fault continues. Peter, reset it and monitor. Need hospital volume. Me reset is not a repair." Peter understood. "Do what you can." That was not approval to bypass, but it proved he knew about the sensor faults. I found another from 2 months earlier. METS for control board request denied again. Failure risk increasing. Peter, we are reviewing all capital due to strategic process. No purchase until further notice. Strategic process. The sale. I forwarded both threads to Rachel. She replied at 6:12 the next morning. Good. Preserve original device. Do not edit contact names. Then another message. This helps with notice. It does not prove alteration. I knew. Every clue helped explain the room. None yet identified the hand that placed the wire. The company scheduled my formal interview for Friday. Rachel and I entered through the administrative lobby. The receptionist, who had greeted me every morning for 12 years, looked at her keyboard and said, They're waiting upstairs. Peter sat with company counsel and an insurance investigator named Samuel Trent. A recorder rested on the table. Trent explained that the interview was voluntary. Rachel said, "Then we may leave at any time." Peter looked annoyed. Trent began with my background. Training, job duties, authority, safety policies. Then he showed me the bypass form. "Is this your signature?" "Yes." "Did you sign this document?" "No." "How can your signature be on a document you did not sign?" "It was copied from a prior authorization." "Which one?" "Press 2 April 14, 3 years ago." "Do you have that authorization?" "The company has it." Peter said, "We have not located it." Rachel looked at him. "You preserved historical maintenance files after our letter?" Counsel answered, "All relevant records are being preserved." I asked, "Was the original Press 2 file missing before or after the fire?" Counsel told me not to ask questions. Trent continued, "Did employees have access to your login?" "They should not have." "That is not the question. The terminal could save passwords. I discovered my account had been used once before." "Did you report it?" "I changed my password and instructed staff." "In writing?" "No." Peter leaned forward. "This is exactly the control problem we are discussing." Rachel said, "Mr. Vaughn, allow the investigator to ask questions." Trent showed me a photograph of the jumper wire. "Is this a maintenance-approved component?" "No." "Could a trained mechanic install it?" "Yes." "Could you—" "Yes." "Could Mr. Vaughn—" Peter laughed softly. "I run the facility. I do not wire machinery." I looked at his hands. Peter had worked in operations before management. He knew enough to understand panels. Maybe not enough to choose terminals. Trent asked, "Who benefits from keeping a faulting press operational?" It was a broader question than it sounded. I said, "The plant meets volume. Customers receive linen. Employees keep hours. Management meets targets. Your department avoids a shutdown attributed to maintenance." "Yes." "You avoid criticism." "Yes." "Did you ever instruct mechanics to reset Press 4 after a thermal fault?" "Yes." "How many times?" "I do not know." "Did you verify the cause each time?" "No." Peter's attorney stopped taking notes. Trent asked, "Did you tell employees we cannot stop the whole line over a sensor?" I may have said something similar. Peter looked down, hiding satisfaction. I added, "I said it during a position sensor failure on a conveyor. The sensor did not control temperature or fire protection. Do you understand why workers may not remember that distinction?" "Yes." "Do you accept responsibility for the safety culture in your department?" Rachel placed a hand near the recorder. "Clarify the time period and scope." Trent said during Mr. Cole's management. I could have said the plant manager controlled budget. I could have said production supervisors pressured maintenance. I could have said every shutdown required Peter's approval. All true, but the question included my part. I said, "I accept that I allowed temporary fixes to become normal. I do not accept that I installed or authorized this bypass." Peter's face changed. Not much. He had expected denial. A complete denial would have made me easier to discredit. Trent turned off the recorder after 2 hours. In the parking lot, Rachel said, "You gave them more than I advised." I told the truth. "You also gave the insurer a negligence theory." It was already there. "Yes, but now it is in your voice." I unlocked my truck. "Should I have lied?" "No. You should understand that honesty is not a legal strategy by itself." "What is the strategy?" "Find the records they do not control." I thought of Ray, of Marisol's notebook, of Luis's messages. People, not systems. The records the company did not know existed. 3 days after the interview, Allison called. "Maya got suspended." "For what?" "She shoved a boy into a locker." I stood up from the kitchen table. "Is he hurt?" "No. He posted the article in a group chat and called you a murderer." I closed my eyes. "I'll come over." "She does not want to see you." "I'm still coming." Allison lived 20 minutes away in a house with blue shutters and a front porch I had helped repaint after the divorce. Maya sat at the dining table wearing a school sweatshirt with the sleeves pulled over her hands. Allison stood by the sink. Nobody offered me coffee. I sat across from Maya. Did you push him? Yes. Why? You know why. You cannot do that. He said Luis might lose his hand because you wanted a bonus. I do not get production bonuses. That is not the point. No, the point is you could have hurt him. She looked at me with wet, angry eyes. Do you know what everybody keeps asking me? I waited. They ask if you knew. I told you what I knew. No, you gave me the lawyer answer. I am trying to be accurate. You are trying not to sound guilty. Allison sat beside her. I said, I knew Press 4 had sensor problems. I knew it needed a new control board. I told Peter that. I also allowed resets while we waited. Why? Because when a machine stops, hospital linen backs up. People lose hours. Contracts get penalties. Maya said, that sounds like an excuse. It is context. You always have context. The sentence was quiet. It hurt more than the shouting. I nodded. You are right. Both of them looked surprised. I continued. I spent years telling myself I was protecting people's jobs. Sometimes I was. Sometimes I was protecting the idea that I could solve everything without forcing anyone to make a hard decision. I should have shut machines down more often. Did you cause the fire? No. Are you sure? Yes. Then why does your signature say you did? Because somebody used an old signature. Who? I think Peter. You think? I cannot prove it yet. Maya looked down at the table. I told that boy my dad would never ignore a safety problem. I did not know what to say. She had defended a version of me I wanted to deserve. I did not ignore this bypass because I did not know it was there, I said. But I ignored enough warning signs over the years that people believe I could have. That part is on me. Maya pulled her sleeves tighter. After a while, she asked, Are you going to sign the deal? Allison looked at me. I had not told Maya about the separation agreement. How do you know? Mom was talking to Grandma. Allison said. She overheard. I said, No, I am not signing it, even if you lose the house. We are not losing the house. Are you sure about that, too? I almost gave her the automatic answer. Then I said, No, I am not sure. The honesty frightened her. It also ended the argument. On my way home, Rachel called. The fire marshal wants a second interview. Why? They found the original Press 2 authorization. I pulled into a grocery store parking lot. Where? Off-site archive box. Does it match? The signature placement appears identical. My hand tightened around the phone. So we can prove it was copied. We can prove the signature image is consistent with the older form. We still need the digital history of the newer document. Does the company have it? They produced a PDF. Created when? Metadata says 3 days before the fire. By who? Author field is blank. That can be removed. I know. Was it scanned? Looks like a composite. We are getting an examiner. For the first time since the fire, I felt something close to relief. Rachel heard it. Do not celebrate. A copied signature helps. It does not identify who created the document. Peter had motive. Motive is not access. He had access. So did other people. The next morning, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a photocopy of an internal memo. Project Harbor safety disclosure items. Crawford Industrial Laundry was listed beneath 3 categories. Open OSHA complaints none. Reportable incidents none. Deferred capital items above $50,000 2. Potential operational interruption low. At the bottom, Peter had initialed the page. A handwritten note said, Closing bonus depends on clean schedule. No surprises. I photographed the envelope, memo, and mailbox. Rachel told me to bring everything without touching the paper more than necessary. Who sent it? I asked. Someone afraid to attach their name. Is it useful, if authentic? Could it be a trap? Yes. She had a talent for turning every piece of hope into a conditional sentence. 2 days later, Rachel called again. The memo is authentic. The company admitted it is part of transaction planning, though they deny the handwritten note is authorized. Whose handwriting? We do not know. I thought of the administrative offices, finance, human resources, executive assistants. Somebody had watched Peter prepare the sale. Somebody knew he was hiding safety issues. That afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. Stop asking about Marisol. Her son needs this job. I showed Rachel. Did you ask about her after speaking with Ray? No. Did you text anyone? No. Then someone knows Ray spoke to you. Or Peter knows she has records. Rachel said, do not contact her. What if she is being pressured? Then direct contact from you could look like pressure too. Waiting again. The investigation moved at the pace of people who still received paychecks. My suspension was unpaid after the first week. I cut expenses, called the mortgage company early, and sold a fishing boat I had not used in 2 years. Peter's 6 months of salary remained available if I signed by Friday. On Thursday night, I opened the agreement beside my bank balance and mortgage statement. I signed my name on a blank page, not the agreement, then tore it up. At 9:30, someone knocked on my door. Marisol Vega stood on the porch holding a grocery bag. She wore a raincoat and looked behind her before I let her in. You should not be here, I said. I know. Did anyone follow you? I took 2 buses. I called Rachel. She answered. Marisol is at my house. Rachel was silent for half a second. Put the phone on speaker. Do not ask substantive questions until I explain representation. Marisol set the grocery bag on the table. It contained 3 spiral notebooks and a plastic folder. Rachel explained that she represented me, not Marisol, and that anything Marisol shared could become evidence. She advised Marisol to speak with her own attorney or union counsel. Marisol said, I am not union. The cleaning company tells us not to talk to anybody. Rachel asked whether she came voluntarily. Yes. Did Nathan request these records? No. Did anyone threaten you? Marisol looked at me. My supervisor said the Crawford night contract may disappear if I cause trouble. Rachel asked, why did you come? Marisol took off her wet coat. Because they are closing night shift anyway. The room went still. She opened the first notebook. Every page had dates, times, room numbers, initials, and short notes. Marisol explained that her employer paid the cleaning crew by scheduled area. When production blocked access, supervisors accused them of working slowly. She began writing down when rooms were inaccessible. If machine stops, we cannot clean floor, she said. If manager says wait, they still say we take too long. She recorded everything because payroll disputes were common. March 3rd, MO 1142, main office occupied, PV. March 9th, alarm 1018, press floor cleared, PV/DK. March 21st, line restart 1206, PV called JR. April 2nd, main terminal in use 1131, PV. The fire occurred April 2nd at 12:47. Did you see Peter at the maintenance terminal? I asked. Rachel interrupted. Nathan let me. She asked Marisol to describe only what she personally saw. Marisol said she entered the maintenance corridor at 11:26 to empty trash. The office door was partly open. Peter sat at the desktop. She recognized him because he told her not to clean the office. He say, come back after 1. Was anyone else present? Rachel asked. Mr. Dalton. Who is Mr. Dalton? I answered before remembering not to. Night production supervisor. Marisol nodded. What happened next? Rachel asked. I clean locker room. Alarm beep 2 times, maybe 10 minutes later. Not fire alarm, machine alarm. Mr. Dalton come from press floor. Mr. Vaughn meet him. They talk. I cannot hear. Did you see anyone enter the electrical cabinet? No. Did you see Nathan Cole? No. Did you know his account was used? No. Why did you write Peter's initials? Because if office not clean supervisor asks why, she opened a second notebook. There were similar entries going back nearly a year. Peter in the maintenance office late at night 5 times. Each date aligned from memory with production pressure or control faults. One entry included, PV says reset before client visit. Another, PV angry says no downtime in Harbor Week. Project Harbor, the sale. Marisol pushed the plastic folder toward Rachel's voice on the phone as if Rachel could see it. Inside were copies of her timesheets. Several had handwritten corrections removing minutes. One correction was initialed by the cleaning supervisor. Another carried the initials PV. Why would Peter initial your timesheet? I asked. Marisol looked embarrassed. He says I cannot charge time when waiting for room. Rachel arranged for Marisol to meet an independent attorney the next morning. Before leaving, Marisol said, my son Mateo works shipping. 90 days probation. If they fire him, I will not contact him, I said. So that is not what I ask. What are you asking? She looked at me. Do not make me brave in your story. I came because they already take the job. It was the most honest sentence anyone had said to me. She was not risking everything because she believed in me. She was acting because silence no longer protected what she feared losing. After she left, I told Rachel, this proves Peter used the terminal. It places him at the terminal, at the exact login time. Yes, and with the night supervisor. Yes, that is proof. It is evidence. Do not make me explain the difference again. The next morning, Crawford sent Marisol's cleaning company a notice ending the contract in 30 days. They claimed the decision had been made before her disclosure. Nobody believed that. Mateo was removed from the schedule 2 days later for attendance irregularities. He had missed one shift when his car broke down. Marisol called me crying. I transferred money to her before asking Rachel. Rachel was furious. You cannot pay a witness. It was rent money. It still looks like payment. There were safer ways to help through her attorney. I acted. Yes, Rachel said. That is your pattern. Nathan sees a problem. Nathan chooses the temporary fix. Nathan creates another problem. We documented the transfer and repayment terms. Marisol's attorney filed a retaliation complaint, which Crawford denied. Then, the company released a statement saying it had identified long-standing maintenance control failures and was cooperating fully. My name was not included. The local article used my photograph anyway. Maya texted. They're still making it sound like you. I wrote. I know. She replied. What are you going to do? For once, I did not say I would fix it. I wrote. Tell the truth. Even the parts that make me look bad. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. A few minutes later, good. Elena Park contacted Rachel the following week. Elena was Crawford's senior financial analyst. 36, quiet, precise. She had worked at the plant for 4 years and attended management meetings but rarely spoke. She had also prepared Project Harbor schedules. Her attorney joined the call. Elena admitted she had scanned my old Press 2 authorization at Peter's request 2 weeks before the fire. That fact nearly stopped my breathing. Rachel asked why. Mr. Vaughn said the insurer needed examples of prior temporary bypass procedures. Did he ask you to alter it? No. What did you send? A PDF scan of the complete form. To whom? Mr. Vaughn and corporate counsel. Did you later see the Press 4 document? Yes. When? The morning after the fire. What did you notice? My scan had a coffee mark near the top right corner. The new form had the same mark, but the machine number and date were different. Did you report that? Elena hesitated. I asked Mr. Vaughn if they had used the old template. What did he say? He said legal had standardized it. Did you believe him? At first. What changed? Elena's attorney answered. My client later found her electronic approval attached to a capital deferral document she did not approve. Elena continued. Peter had asked her months earlier to prepare financial models for the sale. The buyer would reduce the purchase price for unresolved safety liabilities and deferred capital needs. Press 4's control replacement was listed at $86,000 because the company planned to replace the entire panel, not just the sensor board. Peter removed it from the disclosure schedule. Elena asked why. He said maintenance had resolved the issue. After the fire, Peter added Elena's electronic initials to a revised schedule, showing the risk had been disclosed internally. He was creating a record that I knew, she said. Did you send the anonymous Project Harbor memo? Rachel asked. Elena looked toward her attorney. Yes. Why anonymously? I have a mortgage. My husband was laid off last year. I thought if the document appeared, someone else would investigate. Why are you identifying yourself now? Because Mr. Vaughn used my approval the same way he used Nathan's signature. There it was. Not loyalty, not courage arriving fully formed, self-preservation turning into testimony. Real people rarely step forward because the truth is beautiful. They step forward because the lie reaches for them too. Elena produced emails, one from Peter. Need prior bypass form for insurer sample. Scan high res. Another. Remove P for control. Upgrade from harbor exceptions. Maint has mitigation. And one sent at 10:54 the night of the fire to Dalton, the night supervisor. Keep 4 running, harbor team on site Monday. No red tag. Peter had been in the plant because Midwest textile representatives were coming the following week. Press 4 had faulted repeatedly. He wanted no red shutdown tag visible during the buyer's visit. Still, the emails did not prove he placed the wire. Dalton might have. Julio might have. A mechanic might have followed verbal instruction. Peter's strategy could survive by shifting the physical act onto someone else. Then Luis sent Rachel a voice message. Not directly, through his attorney. It was dated 11 days before the fire. Luis's voice was tired and angry. Derek, the thermal sensor is bypassed again on 4. I'm not standing next to that machine this time. Tell Peter. Nathan said no more resets until the board comes in, but Knight keeps clearing it. Derek Dalton was the night production supervisor. Nathan said no more resets until the board comes in. My voice was not on the message. But my instruction was, the message proved I had told production to stop resetting the fault. It also proved the bypass existed 11 days before the fire. The authorization document was dated only 3 days before the fire. Someone had created paperwork after the unsafe condition already existed. Rachel called me into her office. This changes the timeline, she said. Luis warned them. Yes. Why didn't he send it earlier? He believed you knew. But the message says I said no more resets. He thought you said that publicly and allowed exceptions privately. Why? Because that is how the plant worked. I sat back. Again, the culture I helped maintain made the lie believable. Rachel continued. Luis's attorney says he will testify, but he is not doing it for you. I understand. He wants compensation and a full safety investigation. He should. He may also say you ignored earlier complaints. I probably did not respond strongly enough. Do not volunteer conclusions. I am not volunteering, I am remembering. That night I found Maya sitting on my front steps. Allison's car was not there. How did you get here? Lena drove me. You cannot just show up without telling anyone. You do it. I opened the door. She came inside and looked at the empty space where my television had been. You sold it. Yes. For lawyer money. Partly. She noticed the boat keys missing from the hook. The boat, too. Yes. You loved that boat. I loved owning it more than using it. She sat at the kitchen table. I told her about the voice message. Not every legal detail. Enough. So Luis knew you told them to stop? He knew I said no more resets. Then you're cleared. Not completely. Why do you keep saying that? Because one instruction does not erase years of accepting shortcuts. She frowned. Are you trying to punish yourself? The question surprised me. Maybe a little. That's annoying. I know. You either did the fire thing or you didn't. I did not. Then fight that. I am. And after that you can feel bad about the other stuff. I smiled for the first time in days. You make it sound simple. It is not simple. It is two different problems. She was right. Guilt had become a fog. It made every accusation feel connected. But responsibility requires boundaries, too. I had failed to stop a dangerous culture. I had not forged a document. I had not placed the jumper. I had not ordered Press 4 to run that night. Taking responsibility for my failures did not require carrying Peter's. Maya looked around. Do you have food? Some. Actual food? I have eggs. That is an ingredient? We went to a diner. At the table, she told me about the debate I missed. Her team won. She had argued against installing facial recognition cameras in schools. I asked what her strongest point was. She talked for 10 minutes. I did not check my phone. The habit was so small and so difficult that I almost laughed. When I dropped her at Allison's house, she said, "You can come to the regional round next month." "I will." She gave me a look. I corrected myself. "I intend to. If I cannot, I will tell you before, not after." That is less inspiring. It is more honest. She nodded. I'll take it. The joint examination took place 6 weeks after the fire. The room included the fire marshal, an OSHA investigator, the insurer Crawford's lawyers, Midwest Textiles Counsel Ray for the union, and attorneys for Luis Marisol Elena and me. Peter sat at the far end of the table. He looked rested. That offended me more than it should have. Company counsel began with the old story. My department controlled bypasses. My login accessed the maintenance terminal. My signature appeared on the authorization. My history showed that I accepted temporary fixes. All of it was partly true. That was why it had lasted. Then the fire marshal placed the original Press 2 form beside the Press 4 authorization. The coffee stain matched. The signature matched pixel for pixel. Even the tiny gap where my pen had skipped over a crease matched. The Press 4 document was not signed. It was built. Peter said corporate counsel had standardized an old template. Corporate counsel immediately denied creating it. Elena's emails were introduced next. Her high-resolution scan. Peter's request to remove Press 4 from the sale disclosures. His instruction to keep the machine running without a red tag. Then Marisol opened her notebook. She did not perform courage for the room. She read dates. Times, rooms she could not clean. The maintenance terminal occupied by Peter at 11:31. The machine alarm afterward. Peter tried to say she could not identify what he was doing on the computer. Marisol said, "That is correct. I only know you told me not to enter and Mr. Cole was not there." The computer access report followed. My account logged in at 11:38. The terminal's network address matched the maintenance office. At 11:36, Peter's management badge opened the shop corridor. At 11:55, Derek Dalton's badge opened the Press 4 electrical area. Dalton had denied entering the cabinet. Faced with the badge record and Luis's voice message, he changed his account. Peter had told him the sensor was producing false trips and instructed him to bridge it until morning. Dalton admitted installing the jumper. He said Peter handed him a photograph showing which terminals to connect. He believed maintenance had approved it. Peter denied everything. Then the insurer produced a recovered text from Peter to Dalton. "U.S. Nate's procedure, paper is covered. No confession. No dramatic breakdown. Just a sentence written by a man who believed abbreviations made misconduct smaller. Luis's recording established that the bypass existed before the new authorization date. Elena established how my signature was obtained. Marisol placed Peter at the terminal. The badge logs placed Dalton at the cabinet. The sale documents established motive. The truth did not arrive as one perfect piece of evidence. It arrived as ordinary records kept by people for completely different reasons. A cleaner protecting her time card. A worker protecting his hand. An analyst protecting herself. A divorced father preserving old text messages because he never deleted anything. The OSHA investigator asked me one final question. "Mr. Cole, do you believe you bear responsibility for conditions at Crawford?" Rachel shifted beside me. I answered anyway. "Yes." Peter looked up. I continued. I signed the first temporary bypass 3 years ago. I believed it would last 72 hours. I did not verify the larger practice stopped. I let production pressure turn temporary measures into normal measures. That is my responsibility. The investigator asked, "Did you authorize the Press 4 bypass involved in this fire?" "No." "Did you direct Mr. Dalton to install it?" "No." "Did you alter the authorization?" "No." I looked at Peter. "I will carry what I did. I will not carry what he added to my name." Peter was terminated before the end of that week. Dalton was fired too, though his cooperation reduced the consequences he faced. The county prosecutor reviewed the altered records and referred parts of the case for further investigation. I did not follow every hearing. By then, I understood that consequences move more slowly than headlines. Crawford paid Luis's medical costs and settled his injury claim. He kept most of the movement in his hand, but 2 fingers never fully straightened. The sale was delayed. When Midwest Textile finally bought the plant, it closed 1 production line and eliminated 34 jobs. Truth did not save everyone. Marisol lost her night cleaning position, but her retaliation claim produced a settlement. Several months later, she found custodial work at a middle school. Mateo found a warehouse job through Ray. Elena left Crawford before the sale closed. The company offered me reinstatement, not my old position. A 6-month compliance role with no staff and an agreement limiting claims. I declined. I found work at a hospital as a maintenance planner. The salary was lower. The machines were still old. The difference was that when a safety shutdown occurred, the work order remained open until someone with authority signed to accept the delay. No quiet reset. No verbal permission that disappeared by morning. Luis did not forgive me when the investigation cleared my name. He said, "You didn't put in the wire, but you helped teach them the line always comes first." I told him he was right. 6 months later, he called to ask whether the hospital had an opening for an equipment technician. We did not become best friends. I sent him the application link and gave an honest reference. Maya reached the regional debate final. I sat in the 2nd row. My phone vibrated twice during her closing statement. I turned it off. She lost by 1 point. Afterward, she said, "You actually stayed." I said I would. "You have said that before." "I know." She smiled slightly. "Still counts?" I did not save the factory. I cannot say I never helped create a place where safety was treated like something we could repair later. But the fire was no longer under my name. And for the first time in years, I stopped signing temporary solutions just to keep everything running.